Welcome to Learning to Glow, a show about wellness, skin health, and self-development. I'm your host, Jess. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, and skincare expert. I'm so excited to share tips on how to achieve healthy skin and bring amazing guests in the field of health, fitness, aging gracefully, and personal growth. Let's explore all different ways we can take care of ourselves as women, both inside and out, to truly shine. So let's get glowing. Hi, everyone, and thank you for being here today. We have a really great guest, Dr. Angela Zeng, who shares so much wisdom with us about health, Chinese medicine, and nutrition. I really love this conversation, and I had a few aha moments, and there were some really great reminders because we have had Chinese acupuncturists and acupuncturists on the show. And there are some things that I think are so important that I started implementing in my life and then kind of slowly stepped away from, which after talking to Dr. Angela today, I'm like, okay, thank you for the reminder and the inspiration, because these are really fundamental things that we can be doing for our health, our digestion, our energy, our nutrition. So I really loved this topic, and I really loved Dr. Angela. She was amazing. This topic of ancient Chinese medicine and these practices, it's something that I really believe in, and I do practice myself, and I've done it with my family as well. So if I had to sum up what we talked about in one word, it would definitely be balance. That was just the case when it came to nutrition and just overall health. She talks about the yin and yang and just so much more. She is also the founder of the beverage company Carviva, which sounds amazing. I will definitely link the website where you can learn more about her and purchase products in the show notes. Thank you for sharing this episode with someone that you think could really benefit and maybe hasn't heard this information before and needs a great reminder like I did today. And as always, thank you for listening. Enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our show. Today we have Angela Zeng. I am so excited to talk to you today. Welcome to Learning to Glow.
Well, Jess, I really appreciate this opportunity just to share the wisdom I inherit and all the experience I accumulate over the years with your audience. Yeah, super excited.
Thank you. Yes, I know. We were just talking a minute before we pushed record, and this is such an interesting topic. What you do and your expertise will be very excited. Everybody will be very excited to learn more about, because it's such a wise point of view and philosophy, and it's so effective. So if you wouldn't mind, if you could just tell us about yourself, what you do, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah. So I would like to call myself a purposely displaced scientist. So I started my current beverage line back in 2017. But before that, I spent years in medical research. So that's the reason. Basically, I came to this country about 30 years ago to pursue my PhD in pathology. And I had my pre-doctoral fellowship from American Heart Association, and then went to Northwestern for my postdoctoral fellowship. That my research focus was in cancer, studying cancer from cell and molecular biology level. So that was what I was doing. But deep in my heart, and that comes from my deep family roots, I just love traditional Chinese medicine since I was a little, about 5 years old. I just started to play with different remedies. Those were not just my toys, those were my passion. I have one of my uncle, actually, he is still alive in his early 90s already, pioneer in terms of using neuroscience to study acupuncture, why acupuncture works, how it works. Fascinating, fascinating. So I'm here to share what I inherit from my culture, heritage, my family roots, in this amazing healing wisdom, as well as what I learned in the medical science and what I have heard over the years along my journey with Carviva beverages. I did many, many, I lost count, in store and events, sampling events that allowed me to have the opportunity to chat, to discuss with customers, basically shoppers, consumers, to understand their pain point, what makes their daily life a struggle, and how we can use the ancient wisdom, of course, backed by medical science, to help them to live a better life. Yeah.
Wow, you have such an interesting background. And I there's so many things I want to ask you, but I want to come back to what those people in those markets said to you, because I feel like that is such a good representation of how our culture is feeling as a whole, and like what they're dealing with when it comes to their health. And there's probably a lot of confusion. And I know that from personal experience, when you're trying to get healthy, there's a lot of information coming to you and it's very confusing. Like what foods do I eat, and what is the best
Yes.
way to get healthy, and there's so many conflicting answers to that question. So I want to talk about that in a little bit, but starting with your original career in working with cancer, were you trained, or was that a conversation about nutrition at all at that time? Because I know nowadays we are more aware of like what can be helpful or harmful as far as cancer goes, but how was it back when you were doing it?
Well, the research topic I was focusing on, so my research project was, it sounds a little bit high tech, hard for people to understand, the cytoskeleton system. So basically, it's the skeleton muscle system inside one single cell, and how they function at the molecular level, particularly in cancer cells, like when they kind of migrate or infiltrate to surrounding normal tissues, or when they start to metastasize to other parts of the body. So I would say nutrition wasn't a factor, unfortunately, in my research
Mhm.
project. But when I was in the laboratory setting, I was always curious about how different herbal ingredients would do to cells in a petri dishes. Of course, that's kind of a little sounds a little bit crazy, because I think most of the research study I have read about herbal remedies, they're actually a lot. Now these days people think, oh, herbal remedies have no clinical study. Not necessarily the clinical study designed now these days to measure a compound's efficacies and safety, but their clinical study and some laboratory study, many of them for different herbal ingredients, herbal remedies at the cell level is kind of more challenging, because most of, as you can imagine, even one single herb is one plant, right? It doesn't matter if it's root or leaves or tree barks, or flowers or seeds. It contains thousands, if not more than thousands of compounds, natural compounds. So it's really hard for a researcher to pinpoint which compound having what impact, because it's a mix of I will say the synergy. And that's just one particular ingredient, not to mention we combine different herbal ingredients together to treat different diseases. And many times, this is the amazing part about the ancient wisdom. That was, I would say, if you look into the traditional Chinese herbal or Eastern herbal history, development history, you pretty much can divide it into two phases. So phase one is like really like more than thousands of years ago, maybe 1,200 years ago, that back then the resource was still very limited, of course. We just start to have abundant food pretty recent, less than 100 years, right? That's why people start to have this oversupply shock. Our body just cannot deal with so much curry, not to mention ultra processed
Right.
food. Anyway, so in the old days, many of the remedy were formulated very, very smartly. So, for example, there's two famous remedy: one for treating cold, the other for treating upsetting stomach problems. They both contain exactly the same herbal ingredient. Very simple, five ingredients, but they are treating two different things. The only difference lies in the ratio of those five ingredients, and that's just and they do different things, right? So you will say, well, how did our ancestors, the people in the old days, find that? Where did they come up with this wisdom? Of course, back in the old days, there were not diagnosis tools, no medical tests, no fancy microscopes looking at, single cell level or understand what's a molecule compound whatsoever. But what they have is this mindfulness, amazing laser focus on ourselves and our connection with Mother Nature, our connection with the surrounding. Because think about this, our body is basically a form, our physical body, of course, is physical forms of different molecules kind of compiled together. You can think in that way, right? But what makes us into a living form, human being, is this energy. This energy circulating, radiating out. And that energy, people don't understand that. You have this connection with other energy source around you. It could be another animal, it could be a plant, it could be the universe. Sounds a little bit scary, but or like, oh, what are you talking about? Like Wudo signs, you sounds like a witch talk now. But it is true. That's why we have this chi channel, which is so important for acupuncture, right? Acupuncture, we have so many different. I think there's not 400, but close to 400 different channels that through thousands of years practice, we understand it runs through our body from the head all the way to down to our bottom of our feet. Those channels, if one of those get blocked, it can be blocked by the food we're eating, poison that we don't know, we're just ingesting, inhaling every day, emotion blocks due to all kinds of emotions we have accumulating sometimes by simply looking at social media, Instagram. It could be, talking to some unpleasant people or watching some news, make you just have so much emotion kind of outburst or blockage. All those things can cause this energy channel kind of being kind of blocked. And then our body over the times is going to start to have disease. So the ancient wisdom is basically use different tools. And herbal remedy is one of those. Acupuncture, gua sha, acupuncture point, massage, and we use those Chinese sage kind of, it's kind of like an incense, but you put it around your acupuncture points that can alleviate certain kind of symptoms. But in that tool bags is basically what we use is to unblock those energy channels. So I would say in the old days, it's through years, generations and generations, practice, refining, go back to practice again. And there's, because we didn't have fancy tools, everything's relied on understanding our connection with our surroundings.
Oh, I love all of that. Like one of the things that you mentioned with the ancient Chinese wisdom is, you're talking about different things that can block our energy or our chi, is the emotions that you mentioned. Like that isn't something that today we talk about like in a doctor's office. This could be a block because of an emotion or stress, or I know stress is talked about more, but I love that because that shows how that is such a big component to it as well. And a lot of people know about acupuncture and Chinese medicine, and that, the gua sha we talk about, but and even the herbs, because that's like the medicine that is used. But when it comes to nutrition, which is something I want to talk a little bit about today, and the philosophies and, in TCM, what would you say is sort of the starting point? Because I know you mentioned some of them, like not eating ultra processed foods and things like that, but is there a sort of guidepost for Chinese medicine, acupuncture, when it comes to nutrition and things that we're eating and trying to get healthy?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say a really simple rule of thumb is balance. Everything is a balance. I think just early this week I read some research articles. There are two interesting research articles. I'm talking about modern nutritional and medical research now. One is talking about whether overconsumption of protein is going to be damaging to our body, particular brain health. The other one, yes, the other one was talking about high fat diet impact on emotion, particularly leading to anxiety, depression.
Oh,
So both study actually they both use animal model, particularly in mice. But if you look at how they did the study, they of course they feed the animal, poor animal, abundant of like a high fat is really like tons of cheese. I think the mice probably was like, oh my gosh, indulgence. We are living in heaven until their behavior totally changed. They become kind of and what they did is that they actually measured their gut bacteria. It's like microbiome, right? And they look at their behavior, psychological behavior in mice. Interesting enough. And they see that the mice become more detached from their peers, their groups. Seems like anxiety or overreaction, and also kind of depression in the mice. Mice can also get depressed, like human. So, but that was fascinating. But if you look at those and the other study on protein is again they give this mice per body weight is like just way too much protein. But again, like to me, it's like that's an unbalanced diet. But unfortunately, we see so many diet trends now these days, the fake diets, for example, keto or low carb diets. What they focus on is this unbalanced approach. So in the short run, the person may see some results they want to achieve, for example, weight loss. However, in the long run, it's very destroying, damaging to their health. So the balance really rooted in this traditional beliefs or the wisdom, yin and yang balance. So the universe is formed by two forces, yin and yang, right? So yin is, for example, is like moon, yang is like sun, two different things. And then we have the neutral. So you see this in the food groups as well. The food groups actually we define them even further: the cold, the cooling, the neutral, the warm, and the hot. And then we have the five elements, five seasons, not four seasons, five seasons, crazy. This five things is crazy. And then we kind of goes deep into their connection with spleen meridian, our heart meridian, kidney meridian, liver meridian. All those meridian actually controls a emotion group. For example, liver controls like anger, this kind of emotion blockage type of like feeling like lots of women have suffer PMS. They can feel this. This is a liver meridian issue. And kidney is more like fearing of something. Like some people just don't want to try new things. They have more fear that just maybe they're born that way. Their kidney energy is a little bit lower or whatever compared to other people. And then the heart meridian is more like, I would say, joy, happiness. You can see heart is like the sun in our body, is pumping out lots of energy, heat, all those things. And then lung is related with sadness. Sadness. So when people feel really sad, actually crying is great because you embrace, you inhale, you kind of breathe in and out a lot. You kind of expand your lung. In a certain way, it kind of unblock your channel a little bit. It's fascinating, but there are foods going into nourishing different meridians, and then there are different exercise you can do, like yoga. Many posts might be focused on unblocking certain kind of meridians, and you can do that with acupuncture, obviously. So again, this is everything is try to do is to unblock and also restore the balance, the harmony of your own body, which this balance is really, really hard to achieve because it can be easily tilted by the food we're eating, by the activities we do. For example, if someone over exercise, we all know exercise is definitely needed for a healthy lifestyle. But over exercising now we know even from the sports science, right? It's damaging. It shorten our chromosome, even, right? We know that it is true. That's because it's too much yang without enough yin is very damaging. Well, on the other side, if someone just sits there all day long, it's too much yin without any yang to balance that out is also extremely damaging. So the food is the same. When you hear someone, oh, low carb only, you are depleting a very important nutrient groups, which is the good complex carb, which in from the lens of traditional Far East healing arts or medicine is the most essential nutrient, believe it or not, for our body. Because think about this, carbs is the direct source of ATP. Our cells, mitochondria needs that glucose to generate ATP. It can also utilize the fats. We can talk about that in another topic. It's very complex. However, not only the complex carb provides this glucose, but it also provides lots of minerals. Lots of minerals are so important. Minerals are very nourishing to yin. So for women's health, minerals are even more important. For men, it's also important. But many minerals, for example, people now understand beyond iron, right? For example, iron is not only important for hemoglobin level, a healthy hemoglobin level is also important for energy generation because it's a coenzyme in the in our mitochondria to generate energy. Copper is the same, and then magnesium. I don't have to explain. Most people understand how important magnesium it is. Then there are many other minerals, trace minerals that our body really needs them. They actually come from plant-based source. And so if you're depleting yourself from these complex carbs, you're not only eliminating on surface carb, you're eliminating fiber, you're eliminating lots of good vitamins, as well as most important minerals and antioxidant compound that, that's just, like I said, one particular plant has more than thousands of compounds inside. And all of those, they play a role in our body. So just remember that when you try to follow those diet trends, first thing you have to think about whether it's a balanced diet. Mediterranean diet, for example, is very balanced. This is why people in those five blue zone region, they just live not just a long life, but a happy life because it's about the food they are eating is very balanced. They eat plenty of whole grains, legumes, good fats, good protein source from fish or lean meats, and of course fruits, seasonal fruits, all those things. And even if you look at people in those regions, it's not like they're completely avoiding sugar, right? They have treats that they enjoy. They will occasionally drink some wine, maybe a glass of wine each day. I mean, right now we advocate no alcohol because what? Because when you put alcohol on top of other junk food we're eating, it's like putting fuel on the fire. It's bad. But if you're eating a healthy diet and then you just treat yourself with a piece of cheesecake, a nice whatever homemade whatever treats, um, and have a glass of red wine, you're fine. Everything is relevant. People don't understand that and then becomes extreme, right? I would say any extreme diet is really hard to follow. Myself is mainly plant-based. I'm not a vegan per se, because to be a vegan, unless you have this really strong uh, belief in your mind, right? You don't want to harm animal. I think that's the reason you want to be a vegan. If just pure for health reason, it's really hard for people to stick with in the long run. Vegetarian, like the monks living in temple, they are vegetarian, but they are not vegan because they can still consume eggs, they can still consume milk.
Right. I think
Yeah.
it's so I love it's so interesting, like the foundation being about balance, and it just makes so much sense when you think back, like historically, and all of the diets that have been out there. It is literally cutting out a major food group or a macronutrient which we need. And it's
Hmm.
like when you go back to like when I was growing up, it was very anti-fat. So you have like those fats that you need for your brain health and to think, and all of the nutrients that you need from that, and you cut that out completely. And that's what, a lot of these diets, and I've tried most of them, you kind of get to a place where, yeah, like you said, you see a difference or you have some type of positive result, but long term there's most likely there's going to be a problem long term if you're being so if you're really cutting things out that we need. And like even with keto, it's like you're not really supposed to have fruit, so you're missing out on all of those benefits. And it's like,
Isothione. That's a great point. Isothione, those are important not just for heart health. It's important for our brain health, and it's important. I mean, and this is a real, again, clinical observation as well as clinical study to show since the uptake of keto diet, cardiologists actually complain about it. They see more heart events like heart attack, all those. Yeah.
oh my gosh. Yeah, it's
Yes.
like
Yes.
major, it could be major problems down the line with some of this stuff. When
Yeah.
you did mention when you were talking about nutrition, and I love the Mediterranean diet, by the way. I loved, there was that documentary, I've talked about it a bunch of times, called The Blue Zones, that documentary on Netflix. It's just such a great, it's so tasty, it's so good for you. It is like what you said, it's so balanced. There's good carbs and all the vegetables. I love that diet so much. But you did mention temperatures. You said cold, cool, warm, and hot foods. And I know from my past experience that super cold things in our body is not really the best when it comes to Chinese medicine philosophies. It's something I've really had to work on, especially in the summer. I'm just like, I want ice so bad. So, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes, you you point. Yeah, I can give you. It's almost like a joke that we talk about that way. Our culture emphasize avoiding cold so much that I have friends who come from China to visit here, and when they went to the restaurant, not only they don't want ice water, they want warm
Yeah.
water. And then the guy was like, "Can I have warm beer?" I'm like, okay. I don't know how they're going to serve you that. I just don't know. It's easy. Just run that bottle under the warm water for like 2 minutes. It won't work. I'm like, okay,
Oh
whatever.
my
You can do it
gosh.
yourself. I don't think we can ask the waiter or waitress to do that for you. Sorry, but but well, here's the thing. The thing avoiding cold. Again, I talk about this energy, right? We are a body of energy. We can. That's why it's actually fascinating. People don't believe this. I do believe there's for some people can be God, Jesus, Buddha, whatever form, but there is this superpower, this super energy source ruled or kind of radiate out in the universe. I don't know. I mean, if you at that stage you feel the connection, whatever you call it, is fascinating. Or you can meditate to achieve that. In our sense, it's like there's a third eye. Actually, interesting enough, if you look at the real medical science, there is this little gland, right, in our brain here. It actually does many amazing things. But this is the third eye they call when you kind of your third eye usually is blocked for most people, but once you have this wisdom, your third eye start to open, you have much better connection with everyone else. And those are the people kind of foresee the future and whatever. That's amazing. But it's this energy form. So basically, if you think about the energy, what does ice do? It kind of, if you look at from the physics, right, when the molecules start to kind of don't move much, they become water molecule. I mean, they become ice, right? When they start to like really jumping around, then they become boiling water, steam. We all know that. But the cold water, especially the icy water, what it does do is almost like an energy shot to our body. Then our body has to produce more
Mm.
energy to warm it up because even just from the biochemistry, ideal digestion doesn't happen at 0 Celsius, right? Ideal digestion happens at our body temperature, 37, 36.7, 36.9, that kind of Celsius degree. So that ice water is 0 degrees. So your body has to do more things to warm it up. And the other thing is the icy cold water kind of slows down the circulation. Everything slows down the circulation, means you're more likely to have that blockage.
Hmm.
So what it happens, especially we say is extremely important for women's health because in our uterus, it's actually there are lots of blood vessels there. Because every month, I mean, I'm past that age. I'm already in the menopause age already. But we have this bleeding cycle, all this, and then regrowth. So this cycle keeps going on. So what does the coat do is kind of freeze. It can freeze that blood circulation, and that's when things start to grow, fibroids, all those things. So many times through herbs, and that's why also for people who has this severe menstruation pain, if you just put a heating pad or something, you feel better. You feel better, right? Actually, another simple, if super effective thing you can do, if you don't mind, is you just cut a fresh slice of ginger. You can put the ginger into a little bag or a tissue paper, or you can even just put it, on your belly button. And that can warm up, kind of, because there's again different energy channel going through that part of body from our head to our bottom, so that can help your blood circulation better. But that's basically why we try to avoid the cold. Same thing, we don't like anything uncooked, not just uncooked meat. Nobody should ingest uncooked meat, in my opinion, because you never know whether they're pesticides, um, pathogens, because meat so easy to grow things. And even we believe, even for women, especially if you are more in nature, you should avoiding like even cold salad, those kind of things. But there's ways to overcome that, like lots of salad dressing. Actually, our ancestors are very smart, right? Salad is not something nature to Asian culture, but for example, CV salad, we use those soy sauce with a little bit ginger juice or vinegar or hot pepper, that kind of overcomes this cold
Hmm.
nature. So lots of salad dressing has this warm, pungent spice to overcome this cold nature. But if you are just eating like cow chewing veggies, it's actually very damaging to our digestive system.
Oh, that's so interesting about the
Mhm.
period as well. Like, so drinking a bunch of ice water when you're having your period is like probably not a good idea. I didn't
No,
even
no,
think
no, no. Especially during your
ugh,
period.
and I love, yeah, that's a good reminder with the heating pad and the ginger because, I know it can be like this can be like a lot of digestion issues can come from like the raw veggies and different things like that. Like you think you're being so healthy by having salads, like that's what everybody tells you to eat all the time. And then if it's just a bunch of raw veggies and it's not getting cooked, like I know that can be a big burden on your digestive system and
It is.
y-
It is. It is because now these days, the modern society and modern people, we have much weaker digestive system compared to our ancestors, because we're under lots of stress. Our stress factor is not in the old days. People still under lots of stress
Mhm.
factor, but different. But now we're under more because just you think about the information overload, especially since invention of internet and a computer. You can see this growth of technology just it's not like slow growth anymore. It's like
Yeah.
woo, going up. That means we have to cope with this information overload every day on a daily basis. Unless you totally avoid looking at your device, which I cannot. Like I'm still obsessed with, which is bad. I know it's bad. It's well, I have to because I do our own social media. So it is crazy. It is so, sometimes I'm thinking I'm just going to spend 10 minutes there. Guess what? I could spend an hour there, which is crazy. I don't like it, but we are surrounded by this kind of culture already. It's almost impossible to escape. The other thing is, I would say now these days, because the food and also the soil condition is so depleted with natural minerals, right? Because we overuse fertilizer, pesticides over time, over planting, all those things, over harvesting, whatever you call it. So the natural nutrients, especially the minerals, the trace elements, at a much lower level compared to the food maybe even hundred years ago, right? So what happened is our microbiome is not just counting on fiber; it also needs antioxidants, minerals. They also need other nutrients. So our microbiome is also very different than our ancestors. So overall, we have a weaker digestive system. So to overburden our digestive system, because I always hear this raw diet saying, I'm like, don't do that unless you want to short your lifespan or you want to have lots of digestive issue. You might be able to do that when you're young, but try to give someone who is sick, for example, cancer patient, or someone has autoimmune disease, or someone has pretty bad heart disease, lung disease, kidney disease. My gosh, most people have some issue now these days.
Yeah.
It is really hard to run into one person perfectly healthy. I mean, unless you are like in really young age group, right? So I would say you're just adding burden on your digestive system. So that cooking process helps us kind of alleviate some burden to our stomach, to our spleen, to our, it's just a whole organ inside our body. And the other thing is people worry about, oh, how about those vitamins? Don't worry. The vitamin C is heat sensitive, but lots of other vitamins, especially fat soluble vitamins like vitamin A and E, you need to cook them. Otherwise, your body cannot absorb that. Lycopene, for example, perfect example. We talk about Mediterranean diet, right? The tomato needs to be cooked. Carrots needs to be cooked in order for you to absorb this lycopene, which is the red color in tomato, well known for preventing prostate cancer, prostate issue. And then the beta carotene in carrots is fat soluble, needs to be cooked for us to absorb better. And then people worry about this natural enzyme. Don't worry, don't worry. I would say, your body, you will get it from, for example, when you eat a piece of fruits, right? Try to choose organic one. You can look at those 30 dozen list, right? Choose the organic one. And then again, in the old days, if you grow your own fruits or veggies from the garden, actually there are lots of natural good bacteria on that you are ingesting to your body, doing lots of good flavor. I mean, good things. Now these days, yeah, everything's just different. So I would say just be wise what we do. The other thing is lots of herbal remedy. The reason they are so potent, so effective, because lots of herbal stuff, if you're truly sourcing them right, not farm grow herbs, because there's so many farm grow herbs, they are use pesticides, fertilizer, just like how they grow corn or soybean now, they say sadly. Yeah, but source the right one, they are packed with nutrients that our body are lacking. That's why they're so effective. They have nutrients, they have those compounds, anti-inflammatory compounds, antioxidants that commonly we cannot get it from the foods. And now these days, most people probably eat 5 different type of veggies in this
Mm-hmm.
country. I would say most of them. They know a lot more pop music songs or their favorite commercial logos, but they don't recognize many plants.
Yeah, and I know it's good to get that variety of, and I'm guilty of that too. I like get my I know the vegetables that my kids will eat, so I kind of stick with those when I'm but I try like to be conscious of, okay, let me try one new thing this time at the grocery store that I don't normally cook, because I know it's good to have a variety. Would you mind
Yes,
sharing like a few samples or examples of what you eat in a day, because I'd love to hear it. And I know breakfast is a challenging one for a lot of people, but I don't know what your answer is going to be, but I've had people in the past who are like eat like non-breakfast things for breakfast. But what would you can you give us some examples of what you like to eat?
I'm glad you mentioned about breakfast because just 2 weeks ago I heard this podcast, famous sports medicine doctor. She's not in this country. I think she's from Australia. She trains athletes, top athletes, those people. One thing, and there are more and more research, and she has her PhD degree in sports nutrition as well. For women, don't skip breakfast. Don't skip breakfast. So for men, they can skip breakfast, still go to the gym to do or weightlifting, do
Hmm.
training. For women, our body, our hormone system is different. It is different. We should know. I mean, we have different hormonal system that men just, they don't have the cycle, monthly cycle we have, right? I mean, just easy to explain. So for us, we actually, when we get up in the morning, we need a little bit energy to calm ourselves down. Instead of feeling already stressed out, guess what? When your stress hormone level is high, this fight or flight hormone, right? We all know that. You actually more likely to burn your muscle mass, more likely to gain weight. We all know that. That's why people deplete of sleep or who over exercise, they won't be able to lose weight because basically they will gain more weight. When they gain weight, they actually will put back more weight. Is because this stress hormone will slows down our metabolizer rate because it's a self protection. It's like you are under stress. That means we need to preserve the energy so that you can survive, right? Because that's our body evolved through millions of years. That's the system we have to allow us to be on this planet. However, when you skip breakfast, for most of us women, that is, she actually said a lot of research to show is a no because when you have a little, you don't have to have a huge fist, like but a balanced breakfast. What I do is really simple. Fortunately enough, because I have my coffee for beverages, I always love the detox. So it sounds like a little bit strange. Like even for my kids, my son always do like a detox juice with a smoothie because my smoothie is different than other smoothie. I use whole grain. For example, the one I like has quinoa, chestnut, quinoa, the natural protein from oats, the oats, the beta glucan enriched oats, and then a little bit pear puree, and the monk fruits for sweetness, and then the raw cacao. Raw cacao is so different than most of the cocoa powder you see in most of the chocolate product, right? Raw cacao is packed with anti-inflammatory compounds, antioxidants, and they're studied to show it actually even stimulates stem cell growth from our span. So, which is amazing. Everyone should have it. But it's taste, the taste is bitter. If you ever like the 90% or even 75% cacao chocolate, you know what I'm talking about. It's much more bitter taste. We do use, I love monk fruits. That's another herbal remedy for respiratory health. But I use monk fruits for its natural sweetness. So sometimes I just do my smoothie mixed with our coffee. I have this synergy coffee, for example, turmeric coffee or black sesame coffee. And like I said, I like everything warm. So actually, I put it in a little pot, I warm it up. Sometimes I add a couple of spoons of flaxseed seeds, even though my smoothie contains flaxseed seeds. But for women, flaxseed seeds is so important for our regulating our hormone balance because not only is very rich in the plant-based omega-3, so it's the EPA, not the animal-based omega-3 like the fish oil. It is also very rich in soluble and insoluble fiber, which is very important for our hormone regulation. It helps our gut to get rid of the extra estrogen. So people don't
Mm-hmm.
realize our body every day for women is a new you every day. So we don't want the old estrogen accumulating there. Of course, not through environment, everything. We ingest so much estrogen. It could be from your makeup, dish detergent, shampoo, everything. So not to mention like plastic. They're
Yeah.
just lots of compounds in pharmaceutical products are also estrogen like, right? So the flaxseed seeds also contain the phytoestrogen, just like the organic soybean is very protective for women's health as well. I love black soybean. That's in another of our smoothie, wellness smoothie. So I would say I would mix this too, coffee with my smoothie. I would just, add, depends on the day, I would add a bunch of other stuff inside, maybe black sesame seeds, flaxseed seeds, or I would add the Chinese yam, which is really good for your digestive system. Or you can add like sweet potato. It just because for me it's like I skip lunch every day because no time for lunch for me is like okay, and also I can focus on my work or whatsoever, I can take a little break. I can go out, take a walk, whatever I want to do instead of looking for food, right? And then you have ideally, which I cannot do because our family eats dinner a little bit late, but ideally you want to have an early dinner. Right, the ideal time is actually between 4 and 5, which is super early, like senior senior special. I'm that old. Remember in the old days, senior special in restaurant.
Yes.
It's like they want the seniors to eat first and save the prime time for people like back then my age, right? So, but like my parents, my dad is turning 90 this year. Knock on wood, still good health. My mom, her brain works better than I am. I mean, she still does this mind math, no
Wow.
calculator. She can do double digit times another double digit. I'm like, oh, almost 90 years old, but never go to gyms. It's just simple food, balanced food. Never ever even listen to those stupid diet trends. They don't even care. They are that old, right? It's like, don't follow them because one day they will tell you, yeah, drink plenty of water. And the second day they will say, oh, drink too much water is poison. It all depends on who you are, your body type, what you're doing, what are you dealing with. Everyone is different. Someone's nourishing food could be a poison for you. Always remember that. So don't just blindly follow. Oh my gosh, that girl looks so beautiful, fantastic on Instagram. I'm going to do everything she does. If you do everything she does, you might become putting on more weight and more wrinkles on yourself. So I'm just saying, be mindful. You are yourself. Love yourself first before you fall in love with someone
I
else.
love that. It's so true. And then 90% of the time, they're like, I want to do, tell me what your routine is at the gym. And they're like, this is just how I was born. There's genetics that we forget about. Like,
I was going to ask you, are you Italian?
yeah,
Because you're
yeah.
here. I like, okay, I
I'm
can
Italian.
tell.
That's why I love that Mediterranean diet for sure. But
Yes,
yeah, I think it's such a good point. It's like we have to do what's best for us, and we have to be. We're all bio individual. It's an easy
exactly.
time to get sucked into what are you doing, and people are telling us, to buy things. A lot of the times, they're just posting things so that we buy what they're selling, and we have to remember it's deeper than that. We have to listen to our bodies. We have to do what's right for us. But I would love if you could tell us a little bit more about your beverage company because your smoothies sound amazing. So tell us a little bit more about that and where we can find it.
Yeah, so basically I started Carviva back in 2016. I started to build up this little factory because I was in the laboratory setting. So for me it's almost like, well, I know so much about traditional Chinese medicine. I know they work, not just uh, me saying that. I mean, it works for thousands of years. We see plenty of, I mean, it doesn't work for every single disease. We all know that. And I'm not against pharmaceutical compounds. Pharmaceutical compounds can be life saving, but we should not rely
Yeah.
on them. That's two different things. It's lifesaver. That doesn't mean you should be eating them like whatever, like your regular food every day. On the other side, I would say I was basically just wanted to show. I mean, I was naive enough because I wasn't in the food or beverage industry. I'm just like, the way they are manufacturing food or beverage is totally wrong. It's getting better. First, obviously, very high sugar, salt, all those things. The second thing is extremely wasteful.
Mm.
The way they do it is extremely wasteful. Even I'm talking about like cold pressed juice, right? The initial intention was great. It's great. It's to have better, healthy, better for you juices. However, the manufacturing process is extremely wasteful because more than 70% of the raw ingredient, nice ingredient, got basically dumped into the landfill, which is not right to me. So I was just like, well, can I do something that's traditionally being done, but in a food manufacturing setting that allow me to share this with other people. So it took me half a year to set up the factory because again, I was never afraid of machines, so I could deal with that. And then we just start producing very small scale. It's almost like we're still doing that. We produce by order, so we don't accumulate inventories. It's not good. But anyway, so for me, it's like sharing this ancient wisdom. For me, is not just, and I really focus on not just, of course, everyone wants to sell their product, but for me, it's also convincing people to try this lifestyle or have them stimulate their curiosity to understand this ancient wisdom that nobody people heard about it only because, oh, maybe it's trendy, I can post that on Instagram or TikTok. No, 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 no. I mean, if you really understand how we should work with each other, each other, treat other animals, our mother nature, our environments, you actually basically you're going to be much happier because emotionally you're not going to be so obsessed with chasing the emotion you should never chase. For example, like you mentioned about you see this person on Instagram, on TikTok looks so good, maybe under the filter, who knows? Right? There's so many filters you can use. I don't use filter, but people use lots of filter. And every time when I use filter, I just feel like, okay, I do look much younger and prettier, but I'm like, I just don't think I look like me
Right.
myself. And the problem is once you use the filter, you cannot go without a filter. You know what I
Right.
mean? They have to always use the filter. There's plenty of joke because TikTok started in China. There are plenty of this joke. Actually, the most hilarious joke, I mean, real case, not joke, is this old lady in her 60s. She used this filter. The filter in the TikTok in China is much more advanced here. She looks like this beautiful young girl in her early 20s. So she got lots of people giving her gifts. Because on TikTok in China, you can give cash gifts or real gifts, right? So because a lot of people love her, fall in love with her. One day somehow the filter didn't work and show her true face. Lots of people demand, oh my gosh, I need my
Oh
refund.
my. Oh, I know that gets tricky online, right? Like we don't know what we're seeing. We don't know what the reality is.
Yes, so
Don't
don't be
compare.
obsessed with that. I'm just saying, if you feel jealousy or upset with yourself, how come? I work so hard. I'm doing everything. I'm starving myself. I can never look like that. Don't forget about her. Don't worry about her because forget about that lady. You don't even know. Have you met her in
Right.
person?
So true. It's so true. And it's very true too of like people get excited to try the next thing. Maybe this will be the next like silver bullet that helps me get to my goals and my when it's probably more simple than that and not as exciting and it's just the balance going back to that balance and making sure that you're
Yeah.
eating foods that are it's not exciting, it's boring, but that's what usually works.
Yeah, exactly. You said it so well. It is not exciting. It is boring. Save your excitements for things you enjoy. For example, maybe learning a new things. Take a dance class, or doing go to a group workout class, or trying yoga if you have never tried, or if you have the time and whatever the money, go to travel, or just go to read a new book or whatsoever. Play with your kids or whatever. I mean, those are true excitements instead of the excitements from chasing the new
That's
thing.
right. I know. And they can get pricey too. So if somebody wants to try your products, where do they go? And I will make sure I link it in the show notes as well.
Yeah, it is
Okay.
carviva.com. So it's Karviva. So Viva, Viva is an Italian word.
Awesome. Well, I will link this in the show notes. This has been so much fun. It's so helpful and so wise. It's like, it's not trying to find the new thing necessarily. Sometimes we just have to go back to what's been working for thousands of years. And I think that's what I love
Yeah.
about this philosophy and all the years that people have been getting well and healing on it. So thank you so much for sharing. It was such a pleasure to talk to you today.
Well, it's so nice talking to you. And again, I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.